Hello guys, this video will cover ACT test number 22, English section. Okay, so when you do English section, please read passage, and along the reading the passage, whatever underlined portion that you see, you can just do those questions. So make sure you read. That can save some time for later on structural questions. Okay, the potter's kiln. An unbreaking a kiln after firing. Firing is like a person uncovering buried treasure. But a person uncovering, so like a person, someone, potter, omit. Yeah, without this still understandable. So actually like a person uncovering, then that person is uncovering buried treasure. So it's the person is uncovering the buried treasure. That doesn't make sense at all. And then it says, as the potter take brick away to create opening into oven and expanding view of gleaming shapes and blah blah blah. So here, a writer would like to suggest the potter's cautious pace and sense of anticipation in opening the kettle. And then best option. So sense of cautiousness, potter's cautiousness that you have to think about. So take bricks away. This is like nothing really cautious. And then so it's H. Remove one brick at a time. Is it cautious enough? And then claim shape rewards the artist for months of hard work. So expanding view. So view is the subject of reward, so it makes sense as a singular. And also you can check, whatever tense from the previous lines, they're all present tense. This process of creating ceramics begins in a studio. My friend Helen is typical of many more potters. Typical something. Typical is just many more potters. Typical of many potters. That's probably better. So G. So if you say many more, that means you don't include this whoever potter that they're talking about. So it's just general potters. And then it says some pieces. She shapes in spinning potter's wheel, and others she builds on the work table from coil and slabs clay over many weeks. As time goes by, we don't usually use this time because over many weeks is already mentioned about as time goes by. So we'll meet. At last, Ellen will have enough pieces for firing. She then carries the assortment outside to the wood-fired kiln. It is brick structure, so designed, the harden and transform. So glaze is so in this case, if you say it is here, then it becomes run-on sentence because she then carries. So subject and verb we have, and then all of a sudden it is brick. So then you have to have a positive for kiln itself. So you have to just directly to brick structure to explaining about this. So that's why it's just brick structure. So H. And then 7, writer considered deleting this phrase and transforming blazes to glorious color of this process. Okay, so should we keep this or not? So then this part sort of describe about the previous the designing baked powder to hardness and transform glazed glorious colors. So emphasize the colors itself, right? So not just like, giving harden and transform, it gives like, colors as well. So we need to have this. Emphasize the painting time-consuming process and kept relevant essay focus and role of film making pottery. Yes. So it's nothing to do with the like time-consuming process thing. And then move on. Chamber is just big enough for her to crouch in as she carefully arranged the pieces inside. So I don't see any problem with this. Carefully arranged. Yeah. And other things you have to double check, but then you see all of them are like, just same meaning, but then it's longer. So you don't need to worry about them. And the next morning, using twigs for kindling, she started a small blaze in the firebox. So, using twigs, and this is a comma question. Then next morning, obviously we have to have a comma here because that's like separate timeline that they're talking about. But using twigs, that is the thing that, like you need to have for right away because using twigs for. So this is a one meaning. So we shouldn't put comma between these two. So we can eliminate D first and then A, and then also, so between this B and C, yeah, we can't put semicolon because if you want to put semicolon, you have to have the clause after, but then we don't see the clause. And then she starts more blazing. Fire grows steadily throughout the day as she feeds it lumber, scraps, then logs. By nightfall, a controlled inferno roars, and the inferno means like crazy fire. So it says extreme. Yeah, inferno. It's like huge fire. The fire in the hell is inferno. It's from the book called Inferno. And then 11, not be acceptable. So occasionally the fire chugs like train engine. On occasion, once in a while, now and then. So it looks like in ABC, the same meaning. Time or again, there's no such a thing, and also it means like weird too. Each time fires stoked, sparks shoot from the chimney into night sky, not acceptable. At the chimney in, up chimney toward, and so it's at the chimney in. So it's like it's supposed to be at the chimney, then like in the night sky. It sounds kind of like different from whatever they say. From the chimney going out, shooting out. That's why up is fine, and through the chimney up is fine, and then out is fine too. Periodically, Ellen looks through porthole in the wall to determine the fire intensity. The clay pieces gleam white hot amid the flames. The last, when the temperature soars out of sight, and then this one provide most specific detail. Okay. Rise behind soar above the 1,000-degree temperature. So C will be the answer because these two are D, this detail, but then two are D, and the meaning-wise it's the same thing. So that's why C is specific enough. Having died down, she breaks up. So subject is she, then if you say having died, then she died. That doesn't make sense. And what actually died down is the fire, right? So you have to specify that. J, the blaze. And then we'll open the chamber, reveal the result of her labor and of fire's magic. So it's fine. Because result of her labor, and results of the fire's magic. So perfectly fine. And then next, family heirloom. I live with my father in the summer when I am on vacation from school. Last week, he told me he had to go on a business trip in connection with his work. Business trip is in connection with his work. You don't go business trip for a vacation. I mean, fun. So that's why this is redundant. I stay his sister for 3 days. Although I love my aunt, I wasn't happy about the prospect of 3 days at her house with nothing to do. It turns out I was in for a surprise. Soon after I arrived, my aunt said, so not be acceptable for 17. So soon, not long, short time, as soon, shortly, as soon, you need to have as soon as, but then there's no such thing, so it's different meaning. And my aunt said she had nothing wrong with this too. You can't put like commas around the subject and verb, we don't put comma. And then you read through, I'm sorry you never had a chance to know her. She's told me I was expecting my aunt to hand me a ring or bracelet or maybe an old book, but instead she let me outside. The writer considered deleting the first part of the preceding sentence, which means I was expecting my aunt to hand me something. She let me outside. And that's not specific enough. So why do I make this change? Lose. So it will lose the meaning of instead. So then, so this is contrasting, but then she let me. So because of that, it has to be, contrast here. So she pointed to a corner of yard where the tortoise was calmly munching dandelion, and Rosie must have heard us talking. Must have heard. Yes, sounds good. And then she was over a foot long and about 7 inches high. As soon as my aunt assured me that Rosie wouldn't snap or bite, not be acceptable. Soon after, right? So as soon as right after. So after is fine. When? My once. So if you put this my, the problem is that becomes run-on sentence. It doesn't make sense. Comma splice because there's a comma here. 22, reviewing paragraph, realize that some information has been left out. The writer composed the following sentence. This is Rosie, she announced. Sentence logically. So then Rosie has to be like, very beginning that, before they mention about Rosie, anywhere. So sentence 4, there's Rosie. Sentence 3, she. Sentence 2, Rosie. And then she. Sentence 1 is she. We don't start a paragraph with a pronoun like she. So before 1, then it's, more like, the time that goes around, like, who she is that they have to talk about. Even though, like, you're saying she here, but right after, they're to explain right away. So that's why after is the answer for this one. 23. Rosie, it turned out, is, sounds weird because with colon means you have to have explanation of previous part. So probably you have to say it turns out is like abrupter in the middle, so then you put 2 commas around. So okay, B, not be acceptable. My grandmother had started raising over 20 years. Started raising. Had begun to raise. Okay, and started to raise. Same thing. Started up raising. started up raising. This sounds different. Started up raising. Start up is like, you start the like, new event or new company or something that you it's not like, you just start to raise. That's different. 25. My aunt said that she would have checked. She would have checked. That means she didn't check, right? She, with my parents, who each agree that if I wanted to take responsibility for Rosie. So it's nothing to do with she didn't check, so it has to be had checked because of tense. It's like past perfect. What about that next? It's interesting that Rosie is older than I am. Given the authors which most effective introduce follows the sentence. Paragraph. Taurus was land dwelling and vegetarian turtles. So then they can experience the satisfaction of this. Questions that introduce information follow. So they also warm themselves. Says, so that Rosie would be safe year round. Okay, so they warm it up. So probably like something about Rosie using this idea of Taurus and everything too. So needs and care will be the best option. They can experience the satisfaction of contentment through satisfaction is contentment. So you don't need to like double up and then through diet. They can experience satisfaction. This is like too wordy. D, adequately nourished. Yeah, they just like try to raise them. Vegetables and fruit, specific, precise. Yeah, vegetable is specific enough. Fruit, like everything else seems like vague. And then it says parents' backyard. My parents' backyards. My parents' backyards. Yeah, it's good because like you don't have all. There's like more than both parents, right? Because each of my parents' backyards. So backyards has to be more than one because each is a. I learned the Taurus are among most endangered families in reptile. Families in reptile. Families of reptile. So it has to be F or G, but then I'll say families of reptile is better than families in reptile because it just the directly describe about the reptile itself. Okay. And that's a tricky question, by the way. Thirst for knowledge. Benjamin Banneker, the African-American inventor and astronomer, grew up on his family's. So this is not one family, so that's why it's B. Though he had limited access to formal education, not be acceptable, limiting his access to formal education. Limiting his access. So he's stopping. But he had access to education, but it was limited. So it's a different idea. So F is the answer. Because access is limited, not the limiting, like, whatever access at all. Banneker grandmother was indentured servant from England, whom, so we just like take out this after part out, with 2 commas, then after whom we will see bought. That means whom you need to have subject verb after, then this is a who supposed to be. Who verb right away. So bought is the key thing. And their daughter, Mary, Benjamin's mother, also married freed slave. So 34 point to consider adding this. Indentured servant need master permission? No. This is nothing to do with the meaning of indentured servant. This is like, just briefly talk about how she came to, like, that's why it's stray away from the topic. Taught him to read and he not acceptable. So That's fine. Semicolon is period. So A and B is the same thing. So you can't put this too. And then B is fine too because after N you have subject. So C is just run-on sentence. In the winter 1953, at the age of 22, Banneker constructed a clock out of hand-carved wooden parts, displayed his mechanical skills and displaying his interest. So previously constructed, displayed, and then all of a sudden and displaying. So this is not like quite right parallel structure that you see. So if you think about one by one, display what? Display mechanical skill and his interest in learning, probably. And then constructed clock out of hand carved wooden part. Okay, let me just read out. So F is obviously wrong. And then when he constructed. So G is wrong because display his skill when he constructed clock, and then like later part is wrong modification. It's supposed to modify his skills, right? He's supposed to explain about his skill. Then H sounds okay, and then J, mechanical skill by constructing. The same issue that his interest in learning is not like displayed. It's supposed to be displaying his interest. That's why it's H. And then from this, and its component, it's supposed to be C. As soon as you see B, there's no such a thing as a its apostrophe, so we can eliminate right away. But then also A, it's with apostrophe, then you can spell it out as it is component. So that's why it doesn't work. And then there, is there any plural noun that you have to think about? No, it is just singular because they're talking about traveling merchant. Right? And then 38. This is a tense issue, but then previous line, if you see designed, which is past tense, that's why it's kept. Or can you believe it? We don't put can you believe it? This is too much like too informal, so we take it out. Instead of that, we're just putting like whatever left. Banneker lived and worked on the family farm after his father died in 1759. Banneker took over responsibility of the farm with care of his mother and younger sister. In addition, he pursued scientific studies and taught himself to play flute and violin. So number 40, I don't see any problem. Just there's no causation, therefore. So we can eliminate G and J, and then if you put H, the problem is it becomes comma splice because in addition is not a conjunction. 41, delete this last part, preceding sentence. So, versus scientific, so primary lose. Yeah, if you take this out, it doesn't really show how much he's into learning something because previously, the previous paragraph it talks about how he's into learning something, something different. So, yeah, A. And then 1788, neighbor quickly became engrossed in studying monks, using them, what is them? Then it sounds like the bodies. It's the closest now that we have to check, but then it doesn't work. That's why you have to specify. Using them, he predicted solar eclipse. So it's supposed to be calculation. 45, he began to calculate annual tables of yearly sets. Annual is yearly, so you don't need to put again. Son of indentured servant, Benjamin Banneker liked to study music and astronomy. This will almost actually conclude. So this has nothing to do with, I guess, indentured servant, right? This is like how this Banneker is using like he wants to learn more, and he became like the inventor and even the astronomer. That's like whatever this part's. I mean, this entire passage is talking about. That's why if you read through, okay, no, actually, for sake of logic, the essay paragraph 5 should place. Paragraph 5 talks about in 1788, and then okay. So then, if you think about previous paragraph 1759, and then next one is all of them. All of them are sort of, yeah. I think it sounds right as is now. Okay, and then next passage, kayak and kayaking. Kayaks are lightweight canoes originally used for hunting and fishing by the Inuit people of the northern coast of North America. Today, many people use kayaks recreationally for whitewater sports and for touring a wilderness area, and most of that extremely wild. So wilderness itself is wild, so you don't need to repeat this. There's only this one. And then most kayaks are made of rubberized cloth, molded plastic, and fiberglass. So kayaks, so it's plural, so it's supposed to be they are. And 48, the writer considered deleting this preceding sentence, covered except of opening the title and plurals. So you shouldn't delete this because it's describing about the plastic and fiberglass, and then it covers whatever part. So importance of this sort of example that so it's visualized. So G. And 49, so principal types of kayaks are. So after R is just describing about the two principal types. So then you don't need to put anything in between. So there's the C. The whitewater kayak and the largest sea kayak. If you compare only two, it's supposed to be comparative. So it has to be larger. Smaller, larger. If you have more than two, so it's three, then you can say largest. Kayaking in whitewater, tumultuous, rapid. So which is up and down, violent, rapids of swift moving rivers. So period. So right now the problem of that is after kayaking in white water, which is noun, and then the tumultuous is rapids is also noun. So noun and noun doesn't make sense. So you have to put something in between. But kayaking, what is kayaking? So specific subject has to be there, but then that the rapid is the kayaking, right? So it describe about this kayaking itself. So it's just call myself. C is fine. Move on. The design to maneuver through the rapids and around treacherous rocks. Many whitewater kayaks are only 6 to 9 feet long, so it's relatively shorter. And then it says because the center of gravity of paddler boats are easily capsized, and whitewater kayakers are at last advised wear helmets. Previously it says stable and then wearing helmet. It sounds opposite. So opposite thing is nevertheless. And then this one, kayaks are designed for distance and speed rather than maneuverability. Some models have 2 or 3 seats. Sea or coastal kayaking offers easy access to wetlands, marshes. this? Kayaks can float in less than a foot of water, so least acceptable. So is the cause and effect. Does, consequently, and then as a result, all cause and effect. Yet is contrast. So nature watcher. Nature watcher. So a nature watcher can quietly paddle through. So it makes sense. And then shallow frequented by shorebirds and other wildlife. Where divide the paragraph. Dividing the paragraph means you have to find the new idea starts. Where you can find the new idea starts is the most important thing. So if you try to think about to the center of gravity. So design, they're talking about stable and all. And then longer sea kayak is designed for distance. Some of this. I think around like 5, because that's like specific idea that different types of kayak. It says in order to differentiate 2 different types, right? So the second one that we see, the longer sea kayak, is from the sentence 5. And then equipment for both types of kayaks are, equipment is singular, so is. And then fairly simple kayakers use a short double blades paddle. And then it says unelasticized spray skirt. So this is subject and verb. So we have to do something about it in the middle. So the option that we see is B or C, but then so doesn't make sense. We're not like cause and effect to find from here. And then the propelling a kayak works upper body muscles. Paddler pulls one end through the water. The best place position would be through the water. So paddle through the water, right? It says because one end through the water of paddle, it doesn't make sense. It says paddle through the water. So J. This is in this simple but, so which is after but, if you have just versatile means like good at many different things. So versatile is adjective. So then simple is adjective. Adjective but adjective, we don't put anything. So it's 60. Writer will delete this final paragraph. Final paragraph talks about propelling, like how they'll like it shows that the how hackers actually feel about the difference in a way. So if you take this one out, yeah, you'll lose from the kayakers. Like it says kayak works, and then like later on it says kayakers, right? And then later on it says something about water too. So altogether it's going to be G. 61. Some live in airless sims of burning rock. Yeah, and then miles beneath. So miles beneath is just like adverb after rock. So we don't put anything in between here. So it's supposed to be C. Not be acceptable. So sleep in ancient caverns, waking. So something I can find is, yeah, J. That becomes fragment because waiting after centrifuge doesn't really give us specific detail. And then, I mean the subject and verb. I'm saying eating to be bread. So waking after. So what is it? The sheep is that whatever they're asleep. Salt in crushed sleep in ancient cavern. Waking after centuries to feed. Oh yeah. So centuries to feed and breed. So which is C. 64. Toxic waste are pools of toxic waste are. So plural is fine. And then okay, we don't use okay in writing. So this is informal. So you have to say others to live in. Yeah, H sounds okay. Home to still others. 65. Even acid cannot kill them in lightness. Vacuums and locales once thought too hot, too cold, or poisonous. Thought too hot, too cold. So the TOO has to be. So it's B. And then these single cold or celled survival cold extra. So it's supposed to be G because that single cell survivor is described by this extra extremal bills. Okay. And then we need to have another comma at the end because the cold extramobile is the modifying survival, but the survivals, the verb is merely endure. So that's why in the middle you have to put two commas around. And then too severe for other life forms. And then semicolon, they thrive in them. So not be acceptable. Like, this is okay. Okay, yeah, this is one sentence. And then heating love or thermophils flourished. So heating, so this is like plural right now, right? So, and then this is a past tense or present tense. You have to keep present tense because even right now, it's just fact itself. So you cannot make it as a past. Past, if you put past, the right now is not. So it doesn't make sense with that. And then it was thermal pool. The parks are abounding with geysers like Old Faithful. It's it already talked about the thermal temperature and all that stuff. So you don't need to mention about like all this description again. So the pools is fine. And then in the hot waters surrounding the Fuga Reach in the Pacific Ocean, the oil and ensure the survival of other marine life. The writer considered deleting this phrase from the preceding sentence. In the hot waters around this is kept or delete. It's supposed to be there because it gives us specific place, right? So specify it, specific detail. As I said last time, you have to think about when you add, delete, replace, always think about whether it is specified previous sentence, so we should with the detail, or stray away from topic. Those two are most important things that you need to check. And then next one, it says, given all the choices true, which one most specifically and vividly describe underwater terrain? So ocean floors scarred by this. Yeah, scarred gives you like specific detail. That's why it's a poisonous water from cracks at temperature. So where are you supposed to put from cracks? Gush from cracks. Okay, J. And then psychrophiles live in harsh and inhospitable place on our planet. Least effective introduced subject. Least. Okay. because it talks about psychophilia, right? And according to research, this is, yeah. So A is the thing because this is like, not really relevant at all because later part, it gives you specific detail of those like difference between this like psychophilia, survive, like temperature, sub-zero temperature and all this stuff. So other things are like, giving us like specific detail of cold, like area and stuff, but then A doesn't really say much about it. It says harsh, but then it's not specific enough, I'll say. And then next one, writer to delete if life is an extreme environment. Should we delete or not if life is scientists life endure under. So persist in extreme, so endure under similar, and then specific sea exploding volcano of Jupiter's moon. So it all connected. So you need to have this, otherwise it doesn't connect like Earth to Jupiter. So G. The last one, nevertheless. So nevertheless, however, otherwise, on the other hand, all like contrast. Indeed is only different meaning. Indeed means in fact. So you have to double check with others. In fact, findings suggest that life may flourish. So it makes sense. So okay, this is it. I'll come back with other video soon. Yeah, we'll see you soon. Bye bye.